This is the Dollemore Daily, and I'm Jesse Dollemore. So there's always a little bit of negativity anytime we do something a little different. But last time that I had the lovely, talented, and scholarly Brittany Page on the show,
hello,
there was an outsized level of support for it. So we thought we would do it again.
It's very nice.
So thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
If you're not already subscribed to Brittany Page, you should remedy that situation. There is a link to in the description to her YouTube channel.
It's almost like you've been working all day.
Yeah, I know. So let's talk about Mifepristone. If you don't know, it is often called the abortion pill. But I want to set the stage for where we are in America right now. Last summer, the Supreme Court stripped 50 years of precedent, nearly 50 years of precedent, leaving it to the states to restrict abortion across the country. Women's reproductive health care has been set back half a century. In several states all across the union, they are implementing draconian bans in some states where there's no exception for the life of the mother or rape or incest at all. And when this started to take place on our podcast, I Doubt It, and several media outlets, they were saying to just wait. They're going to come for contraception. They're going to come for these other things. And this pill was directly in the crosshairs of conservatives. It was banned, and then that ban was stopped. And now tell us where we are.
Yeah, well, a federal appeals court has ruled in favor of the abortion restrictions, basically setting up the stage for a showdown with the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court hasn't yet announced that they're taking up this case on Mifepristone, but I think, according to legal experts, it's headed in that direction. And of course, Mifepristone is a drug that was first approved 20 years ago. It is part of a 2-drug regimen involved in the process known as medication abortion. It is used in over half of abortion procedures in the United States. It is safe, it is effective, and most importantly to note, I think, given the news, it can be very confusing, it is still available. So if you are looking for abortion pills, if you're looking to obtain Mifepristone, you can check out Aid Access and also Plan C Pills, and we will have links to that in the description below. I think it's important to kind of set the stage for where we are right now and how this kind of came to be. So back in April, a Trump-appointed judge, Matthew Kacsmaryk, ruled, he ordered a hold on the federal approval of Mifepristone. That was back in April.
Challenging the FDA's processes that they went through. Listen, if you know anything about drug approval in the United States, it's almost too careful. And Mifepristone, like Brittany mentioned, but I'll put a little stank on it, is absolutely bared out by science, bared out by research, bared out by the fact that there aren't women dropping dead like flies after taking it. It is safe. Absolutely, without doubt. It's not in question.
It's actually safer than penicillin, Viagra, and Tylenol.
Yes.
The overall mortality rate associated with medication abortion is 0.65 deaths per 100,000 medication abortions. And if the only cases that appear to be related to abortion are included, the mortality rate is 0.35 deaths per 100,000. If we're looking at penicillin,
a third of a human dies for every 100,000 medically assisted abortion. Sorry, go ahead. Penicillin.
If we're looking at penicillin, the rate is 2 deaths per 100,000 patients administered the drug.
6 times more death from penicillin than Mifepristone.
Viagra's fatality rate, 4 deaths per 100,000 users.
That is, I'm not even going to do the math. It's a lot more.
And Tylenol overdose is the most common cause of acute liver failure in the United States and accounts for over 600 deaths annually. So mifepristone is safe.
Right.
But that doesn't stop these conservative judges from issuing these rulings trying to stop it. And luckily, around the same time as that April ruling from Texas Judge Matthew Kaczmarek, there was a judge out of Washington that issued a conflicting ruling. And so then that sent things to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit. And the Fifth Circuit basically preserved partial access to mifepristone.
Yeah.
Only under strict conditions. So they prohibited its use beyond 7 weeks of pregnancy, and they prevented its distribution by mail and said that it needs to be prescribed by a doctor. Those are really the three main things in contention. And so that brings us to where we are today. Mifepristone, according to reporting from Washington Post, will remain available for now under existing regulations while the litigation continues in accordance with a Supreme Court order this spring. The Justice Department said it will go back to the Supreme Court to appeal Wednesday's decision, which only partially upheld a lower court judge's ruling in favor of a coalition of anti-abortion challengers. It's worth spending some time talking about this ruling from Wednesday, though.
Yeah.
Because there's this judge, James C. Ho, and his argument in his dissent in this ruling is remarkable.
Listen, just wait until you hear the jackassery on display. It really does lay bare the fact that Republicans and their judicial appointees, especially when we're talking about Trump supporters or Trump appointees, they don't know what they're doing. They are just plucking justifications out of thin air and having to invent things to come against safe drugs like this. One more thing before we move on. Stephen Ho.
James Ho.
James Ho. The things you're, I thought I'd written down Stephen. I did write down James. The thing that you're not hearing from Democrats and liberals in attacking this judge for his stupidity is the fact that he's an immigrant. Now, with Tanya Chutkan, who was born in Jamaica, you're hearing that all over the internet, fueled by bigotry in the conservative movement. No one is attacking this guy for his opinion because he was born in Taiwan, because that is stupid, it is bigoted, and it is hateful. What you're going to hear, what follows, is going to be a cogent mockery in some cases, but also argument against the ridiculousness of his argument. Now let's hear the brilliant legal scholarship from James Ho.
Well, so this is the basic premise. Okay, he's making the basic argument that doctors are harmed. They suffer what he refers to as an aesthetic injury when their unborn patients are aborted.
So, in cases, you have to have standing to even bring a case before a court. So I can't sue a casino for a trip and fall, or a grocery store for a trip and fall that didn't happen to me. I couldn't, because I don't have standing in that case. He's saying that doctors who are OBGYNs or whatever, they are materially harmed and they have standing in this because they don't get to see ultrasound photos of fetuses.
Yes. And he points to cases involving injuries claimed by animal lovers and environmentalists as his standing.
Right. You know, the environmentalism and conservancy relative to nature, you know, the pet issue of conservatives everywhere.
Yeah, so let's read his words. Let's get into it so you know that we're not misrepresenting what he says. He writes here, the desire to use or observe an animal species, even for purely aesthetic purposes, is undeniably a cognizable interest for purpose of standing. The person who observes or works with a particular animal threatened by a federal decision is facing perceptible harm. It's well established that if a plaintiff has concrete plans to visit an animal's habitat and view that animal, that plaintiff suffers aesthetic injury when an agency has approved a project that threatens the animal.
Is he saying that a woman's womb is like an animal habitat? Because that's what it sounds like he's saying, and that the doctor will be visiting that animal habitat.
It's going to get worse. So he references some cases and says parenthetically, standing where agency expanded approval for hunting, depleting the supply of animals that the plaintiffs seek to view, and causing plaintiffs to witness animal corpses.
Yeah.
Okay, then he references another case, and he says, standing here for bird watchers to challenge agency permit that would allow development and thus diminish the wildlife population visible to them. Another case, standing where agency authorization to use pesticide created the demonstrable risk to beetles and butterflies that plaintiffs intended to view. And here it is. Unborn babies are a source of profound joy for those who view them. Expectant parents eagerly share ultrasound photos with loved ones. Friends and family cheer at the sight of an unborn child. Doctors delight in working with their unborn patients and experience an aesthetic injury when they are aborted.
Now, look, we just covered the case in Mississippi, the horrible case where a 10-year-old girl, I believe, maybe 11 or 12-year-old girl.
She was 13 when she had the baby, 12 when she was raped.
12, raped in her front yard by a monster while she was filming herself doing TikTok dances. She was impregnated, forced to have a baby by the state of Mississippi. And this jackass, this jerk-off, would have you think, and the courts think, that because people like to look at ultrasound photos and doctors, that girl should be forced to carry her rapist's baby. That is the argument of this asshole.
Well, you hear it coming through, right? This amounts to privileging men and male gratification as a justification for abuse of women. It's the doctor gets joy from looking at an unborn child. Well, what about the person who's carrying the baby?
Right.
Who may not want the baby, who may not be able to take care of the baby? Is that more important than the delight a doctor feels when they look at an ultrasound?
The alleged delight. It's a job. An OBGYN, it's a job. Certainly, I'm sure they derive satisfaction for the good they do in the world, but that is not they don't have a right to that joy. They don't have a right to the gasps of delight when people look at an ultrasound photo.
Yeah, so let's end with this kind of final quote here to get his main point. The FDA has approved the use of a drug that threatens to destroy the unborn children in whom plaintiffs have an interest. And this injury is likewise redressable by a court order holding unlawful and setting aside approval of that abortifacient drug. I see no basis for allowing Article 3 standing based on aesthetic injury when it comes to animals and plants, but not unborn human life.
So a woman's rights take a back seat to a doctor's right to feel good about seeing ultrasound photos or seeing the faces of people who delight in those types of photos. It defies reason and rationality and decency. It's ridiculous, and they do it with a straight face. It's shameful.
Yeah, it's disturbing. It's insulting. It's laughable, but it's scary because this is ultimately going to go before the Supreme Court. And this guy clerked for Clarence Thomas.
This guy was signed, he was sworn in by Clarence Thomas in the library of Harlan Crow. And I'm not making a joke. All of those things are true. We're going to leave you there. We would invite your opinion and your remarks about this. You can call, leave us a voicemail, 714-576-4054. Of course, you can email daily@dollemore.com. We welcome your opinion about this. If you appreciate my work and by extension, Brittany Page's work, please consider supporting our work right here on YouTube. You can click the join button below. See what's involved. For $1.99, you can support our work and become a channel member. You can also go to patreon.com/IDoubtIt podcast. That's a great way.
We love our Patreon supporters.
And you can also just hit the super thanks button and give a couple bucks or whatever, however the spirit moves you, as it were. You can follow Brittany Page on the social media.
At Brittany E. Page everywhere.
And I'm at Dollemore, as always. We love and appreciate you guys. Thanks for being passionate about our world, about human rights, about lessening the quotient of sorrow and misery in the world. We'll see you next time. Until we do, be genuine. Take care of one another.